Hi, my name is Eleanor Tatum, and I'm the publisher and editor-in-chief of the New York Amsterdam News. The coronavirus crisis has brought serious distress to local economies and advertising along with them. The New York Amsterdam News has partnered with the Local Media Association during this unprecedented crisis. Help us continue our important work in chronicling the life of Black New Yorkers, and consider making a donation to the COVID-19 Local News Fund today. Go to givebutter.com/Amsterdam News. Again, that is givebutter.com/Amsterdam News. Thank you and stay safe.
It's Thursday, April 7th, and welcome to the New York Amsterdam News Podcast. I'm Cyril Josh Barker. We continue our coverage of the COVID-19 outbreak with my guest, Yusef Salaam of the Exonerated 5. He's going to be speaking with me about what he thinks the government and correction officials should do in the face of the pandemic in the nation's prison system. We will also discuss excessive force being used towards African Americans over social distancing orders in the city. More than 9,400 people in prison have tested positive for COVID-19. Black and brown people are overrepresented in jails, and most correctional staff are also people of color who will return to families and communities while potentially carrying the virus. Yusef is one of 5 young men unjustly convicted at the age of 15 in the 1989 Central Park Jogger case. He spent 6 years and 8 months in the prison system, and we welcome you to this episode of our podcast, and we're so happy to have Yusef on to talk about this issue. We've talked about it before about COVID-19 and how it's spreading in our prison system. He's also going to be talking with us about our front page story that we had that came out today about NYPD using excessive force on Black people. I'm sure you all saw that viral video of the police officer, NYPD officer Francisco Garcia. He basically slapped, punched, and attacked a Black man while he was trying to enforce social distancing orders. That story was actually by editor Nayaba Rinde and myself. Another front page story that we have is by me about the 2020 census. Several local leaders and elected officials are advocating that people fill it out. It is so important, especially in this time during the pandemic. The census can be done online, and so advocates are saying to go ahead and fill it out even while the pandemic is going on. In our arts and entertainment section, we have a review of Drake's Dark Lane demo tape and the viral dance craze. Hope I'm saying this right. The Toosie Slide. It's a great story by one of our entertainment writers, and you can see that story and all stories online, or you can go to the newsstand and pick up the paper. Well, I'm sure you all know about the recent shooting of unarmed Black 25-year-old Ahmaud Arbery in South Georgia. He was shot by 2 white men, a father and a son, in February, and the father is a former law enforcement. And so I know everybody is watching this story. It's very popular on our website, and we hope that you continue to watch our coverage. We're going to be covering the story in the paper next week, and we're actually going to be doing an upcoming episode about that story here on the podcast. We're just getting some things together to try to make that happen, and we will definitely let you know when that happens. Well, my guest today is Yusef Salaam of the Exonerated 5. He's with me on the phone to discuss what the government and correction officials should do about the COVID-19 pandemic in the nation's prison system. Welcome to the podcast, Yusef. How are you?
I'm doing well. How's everything going?
Everything's going well on my end. Thank you. Before we get started about what you'd like to talk about, I did want to get your thoughts and opinion on the recent NYPD arrests that have been going on, excessive force being used, especially on people of color in the city when it comes to enforcing social distancing. What are your thoughts about that?
Man, we're talking about a tale of two cities. I've been watching these videos online, been kept in the loop as to what's going on in New York about these different arrests. And you have one part of the city being treated very nice and gently. Police officers are handing out masks and telling people to be careful out here and be safe. And in other instances, people are being arrested because they're saying they're not social distancing. And, in one instance, I think I saw a funeral going on and people were being beat up by officers and pepper sprayed. Really, really tragic.
Yeah, absolutely. It's actually one of our most read stories on our website, so a lot of people are talking about it. Do want to ask you about your thoughts on COVID-19 and the prison system. More than 9,400 people in prison have tested positive for COVID-19, not to mention the correction officers that are in there as well. What are your thoughts on this? I know with your situation, you did spend some time in the criminal justice system. What are your thoughts on this?
My thoughts on what's going on in terms of the amount of people that are being infected, the amount of people that are catching it, both in the prisons and the people who are there the caretakers of the prison. This is a petri dish. This is a place where folks have been forgotten. For all intents and purposes, it was always a lock 'em up, throw away the key kind of situation when it came to people of color, people who look like you and I. And, we're seeing the ill effects of that treatment, the inhumanity of it all.
Yeah, we actually had a couple of advocates on a few weeks ago talking about this very issue, even down to not having hand sanitizer. What are you hearing about the conditions in the prisons in this country, particularly here in New York City? We have Rikers, of course, our city jails, and we have a federal prison as well in Brooklyn. What are you hearing about what's happening on the inside?
I'm hearing people are afraid. People are scared. There are people who are in cells with other folks because it's no longer a situation where you have a single cell person. You have sometimes upwards of 4 people in a cell. One toilet, one sink. Anyone gets sick, everyone gets sick, and people are experiencing that. People are trying to figure out how are they going to survive this, because no one's really caring who has direct relationships with the prisons. They're basically like, hey, fend for yourself, basically. I mean, I don't think they're saying that to them, but the attitude is that, we just have to figure it out.
Yeah, absolutely. And so I was also given some numbers by your team about an analysis in a Texas prison that found cases of coronavirus among Texas prisoners increasing by more than 38,000% during April, and that's a very big number. But we're also talking about first, I just want to say the fact that also the majority of people in prisons that are overrepresented in our jails are people of color, not to mention the correctional staff as well. These correctional staff people are bringing the COVID-19 virus back into our communities because they are essential workers. What are your thoughts about that?
The worst of it is that people are not being protected. That's the worst of it. The worst of it is that you have people on the top who aren't, and who really from the beginning had not given real credence to the issue of what it is until when it was too late. And for people who had to continue to work, to continue to go into these places to do their jobs, this is a sad situation. It's almost criminal.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And so what are your suggestions that the government should do and the correction officials should do to slow the spread of COVID-19? Because we're also talking about the fact that many inmates have died from COVID-19, and there's definitely going to be more as this pandemic moves forward. What are some of your recommendations that government should be doing, and what should correctional officials be doing?
I think that they should definitely be very lenient towards the people who are elderly and infirm and let them go. Mm-hmm. And I think as they let them go, they need to give them the opportunity to be gently gently put back into society. And that means that, of course, we may have to figure out, is it a hotel? Is it there are a lot of abandoned buildings. Mm-hmm. And it's a little bit too late for organizations like Habitat for Humanity to step in. But I'm just thinking people who are in those spaces who need to be able to be safe. Mm-hmm. How do we ensure that? Right. Because in the city, people are going back to the projects. Mm-hmm. And in the projects, sometimes you have families living in 1-bedroom apartments, one bathroom, whole families. Mm-hmm. This is really, really tragic. But the way that we, I think, respond, the way that they should be responding, is definitely by letting people who are elderly, people who are infirm, people who have been helping to bail the country out, making hand sanitizers and things like that. They need to be given some time shaved off of their sentences.
Mm-hmm.
There has to be a give and take.
Mm-hmm. All right, absolutely.
We can't forget about the humanity of us as a people.
Absolutely. And of course, the question comes up whenever we hear about this, about, inmates being released due to COVID-19 is, we're releasing criminals back into our society. That's not me talking. That's, what some of the controversy is. What is your answer to that? That people might be saying, hey, we might be letting dangerous people into our community, into our city, who not only could be spreading the virus in the community, but, there could be an issue of crime and things like that. What's your response to that?
I think what we have to understand is that it used to be called the correctional facilities. It used to be a place where people who had done a crime was adjudicated, and then if they went to prison, they got the opportunity to serve their time, and then become a full citizen again. Mm. And of course, we're not in that space now. We're in a space of punitive actions. We're in a place where people are non-caring. They don't want them to be around. But guess what? Everybody has a neighbor. Mm-hmm. Somebody's going to be the neighbor to someone. And the unfortunate reality is that in the black and brown communities, we're talking about a system of slavery that has never gone away. Mm. This is the new Jim Crow, as Michelle Alexander talks about in her book.
Right.
And we have to make some strides to change that. We have to look at things like, how do we reform the 13th Amendment? We have to look at things like the fair sentencing of people across the board, and of course people of color. In New York City, when Bloomberg was the mayor, you had an overwhelming response in the black and brown communities where people were being harassed, were being stopped and frisked and all of that stuff. Mm-hmm. This was disproportionate in a city that has a balance. This was overwhelmingly disproportionate. And that's just an indication that is a example of what's going on around the nation, that we have to figure out how to balance it all back.
Mm. Yeah, absolutely. I agree. And as far as treatment and testing is concerned, what should that look like in our prison system and our criminal justice system? Because the fact of the matter is, COVID-19 can spread so quickly in a prison facility. And I can't remember what city or what state it was in, but there was a prison somewhere, I believe down south, that literally had thousands of people that became infected very quickly. And so what should testing and treatment look like? Because the fact of the matter is, there are some people who may not be able to get released who are dealing with COVID-19. What should care look like in the criminal justice system, medical care?
First of all, testing should be testing everyone. And we have to pack our patience. And I'm not saying we, meaning the people who are being tested. I'm talking about the people who are doing the test. They have to pack their patience. They have to be able to look at this and say, how can I add to the greater good of humanity and society by doing the right thing? Mm-hmm. And so everyone should be tested. And then on top of the test, once that happens, once the diagnoses are either yay or nay, once a person is cleared or have to go to get treatment, that treatment should be afforded that opportunity. That person should not, I'm thinking about like the healthcare crisis. I'm thinking about people who are, who don't have health care, the bills that are going to be coming out as a result of this, meaning like the tab that they're going to have to pay, people who have lost loved ones in this process, mm-hmm. all of that stuff, everything has to be weighed. And we have to respond in a way that makes sense, and then that talks to the humanity of us as a people, and then that also brings out the greatness of us.
Absolutely. One of the things about COVID-19 that I believe is that this is starting to turn into an opportunity where disparities are finally being recognized. They're being, forced to the front. And of course, conditions in our prisons is something that, we at the Amsterdam News, and the treatment of our inmates is something that we at the Amsterdam News have always advocated for. What changes should be made for the long term in the prison system, health-wise, to ensure that our inmates, our brothers and sisters behind bars, are being treated properly, being treated ethically, because there could be a second wave of COVID-19, according to what folks are saying. What changes should be made for the long term to ensure that the health of our inmates is being properly taken care of?
Well, one thing I think that they should change immediately is they need to stop sending us to prison.
Okay.
And the other thing that has to change, that has to happen, as a matter of fact, is we can't follow the same old rule of putting people in these 6x9 cells like sardines.
Mm.
Every person has to be able to have one cell, one inmate. Sentencing has to be fair. Healthcare has to be there. The humanity of the people in the prisons has to be recognized. They can't be the forgotten. They can't be the ones that everybody is looking over and, the foot of the oppressor continues to be put on their neck, so they get double jeopardy.
Mm-hmm. All right.
They have to be counted as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And so, what can the community do? Because obviously this is a problem that we're seeing in the news often, but I don't believe it's being seen often enough about what's going on in our prisons and jails in our country when it comes to COVID-19. What can the public do to, get the word out, to become active in making changes in the criminal justice system?
I say the public should definitely join organizations like the Justice League NYC, definitely join organizations and sign up to donate money to the Innocence Project, the Marshall Project. My mother runs an organization that's called Justice for the Wrongfully Incarcerated. Every year, she would do a walk from New York City to Albany because of the atrocities that are going on. And
Right.
of course, this year, because of COVID-19, she can't do the walk.
Yeah.
But what they're doing is they're going to be doing a virtual walk. So everything is happening in the virtual reality now. People are doing things
Right.
new ways through Zoom and phone calls and things of that nature. And I would say just donate time if you can, donate money if you can, participate. We have to understand that we are the people.
Absolutely wonderful. I'm sure folks definitely want to know what's going on with you. You've been through so much in your life, and of course, now that I have you here, please tell us what's going on with you. People are always, asking and wondering what is going on with the Exonerated Five. And I like saying Exonerated Five because I've stopped saying Central Park Five for a long time because of what happened to you. And, with the movie and the documentary, especially the movie, it really, put a face to the story, more of a face to the story, and, got the story more widespread so a new generation can know about it. I have a nephew who watched that. Obviously he was too young. He's 16. He watched the movie and he was just like in awe because he couldn't believe that had happened. But I'm glad that he knows now. So that's another person who's aware of what happened to the Exonerated Five. But tell us what's going on with you. What do you have coming up? Go ahead.
Yeah, we have so we're all of us, I think, are trying to use our platform to make sure that we speak to the issues that are going on right now in the community. The atrocities that happen, of course. We're thinking about the families who have been run over by the spike wheels of justice, down here in Georgia, where I'm at. And then there's a lot of things that have to happen. Personally, some of the projects that I'm working on right now, I'm working on a book that's going to be coming out September 1st of this year, called Punching the Air, that's going to talk about a young person really as a representation of young people who find themselves in the prison industrial complex unjustly, who find themselves having to realize for the first time in their lives that there's two different Americas, separate and unequal, divided. And folks aren't afforded the opportunity to really appreciate the same things that other people who may have fairer skin, or they say the complexions for acceptance have. And I think all of these things are important because the more you use your platform to try to make change, the better we add to the good of society. The more we add to the society to make sure that everybody has a fair chance. People look at us and they say, man, how did you go through that?
Right.
And I tell people, really, it's about what we had to grow through.
Mm-hmm.
Because, it's one thing to come out on the other end, and if you're bitter about it, then you become a worse type of individual. But if you're better, then you can give people a way. You can tell people that prison is not a rite of passage.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of young people in our communities have been told that, they're going to be dead or in jail before they reach the age of 21.
Mm-hmm.
I'm telling people, who gave you that thought?
Mm-hmm.
We need to take that thought out of our minds. Even if it's happening in our communities, we need to be the one who breaks those generational curses. And it's all on us.
Mm-hmm. All right. Well, listen, it was so great having you here on the podcast, Yusef. We really appreciate you coming on, and we definitely love to have you back, especially when the book comes out. But thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you as well for having me. I appreciate that.
That concludes this week's podcast. You can pick up the latest edition of the New York Amsterdam News on newsstands and get updates online at amsterdamnews.com. You can also keep up with us on Facebook at NY Amsterdam News and follow us on Twitter at NYAmNews. I'm Cyril Josh Barker. Thanks for listening.
Hi, my name is Eleanor Tatum, and I'm the publisher and editor-in-chief of the New York Amsterdam News. The coronavirus crisis has brought serious distress to local economies and advertising along with them. The New York Amsterdam News has partnered with the Local Media Association during this unprecedented crisis. Help us continue our important work in chronicling the life of Black New Yorkers, and consider making a donation to the COVID-19 Local News Fund today. Go to givebutter.com/Amsterdam News. Again, that is givebutter.com/Amsterdam News. Thank you and stay safe.